Well, good morning there, everyone. How you doing on this fantastic Friday? If you're a normal worker, your weekend is almost here. So thank you for working. Hopefully you worked a 40-hour week. I'd like to thank all 40-hour workers in the country. And remember, you can retire if you want to in 5 to 10 years. Just follow my advice on this channel if you so choose to. Because remember, I'm just Mazske Finance. I'm the guy who went from 0 rentals to 25 rentals in just under 4 years. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you how I got started in real estate. But before I do, I am Mazske Finance. I'm in South Florida for the moment. Not sure how much longer I'll be here. And anyway, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. And I always add in now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. Nothing like that. I care about each and every person out there. I want us all to be as healthy as possible, and I want us all to progress towards being wealthy. You have it in you to do it. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, so how did I get started in real estate? Okay, sometimes people don't necessarily believe my story in the beginning. They think I had deep pockets. They think I was rich. They think as a stock investor with great returns from 2005 to 2018, they figured I used stock money to buy real estate. Well, no to all those things. No. Okay? Because what happened was back in 2016-ish, the missus and I had been talking about what are we going to do. Our personal residence was paid off. We paid it off in January of 2015, I think it was. Both of our boys had moved out of the house. Both had attended the United States Coast Guard Academy. The youngest had graduated high school in 2015 and was at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy up in Connecticut. We were both still working full-time jobs, living in Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. So we decided it's time to start looking around. Where do we want to move to? I knew I was planning to retire on April 1st of 2018, and we're in 2016. Okay, the missus was working full-time. We took our first vacation. I'm just thinking how it's all played out. In 2016, we took 2 vacations. We went to the country of Panama because we had not been to Panama in a number of years. We went to the country of Panama. I think we stayed about 2 weeks, roughly. We actually met both our boys there. Our youngest son, it coincided with our youngest son being on spring break from the Coast Guard Academy. He flew down, and my oldest son was on a boat out at sea, and it was coming back from, I guess it was Antarctica, whatever one's in the south, and was actually stopping in the country of Panama for like 3 days. So during that 2-week time period, we met both our boys there. Their youngest son stayed for, I guess, about a week, basically. So anyway, later in the year, in the fall, we took a vacation to Savannah, Georgia. I rented an Airbnb on Tybee Island. Tybee Island is right outside of Savannah. That Airbnb had 3 properties on it. It had the big house, it had the little house, and it had a mobile home. So I knew I was renting one of the houses. I thought I was renting the little house. It was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, something like that. But when I got there, the little house was like locked up. Nobody was around. So I called the owner. I had her number, I guess. And she told me I was in the big house and told me how to get in. Okay. So anyway, I guess it was the next day or two, she came by and she wanted to get a couch out of that house. And we got to chit-chatting, as I do with a lot of people. And I asked her about the house because I said I was interested in potentially buying some kind of investment property like that, like an Airbnb. Because with my house paid off and the 2 boys gone, all of a sudden I had a little bit more money coming in. Okay. And she started talking to me about buying that property. And I would get all 3 properties, the 2 houses and the the RV. Okay, and I started thinking about it. I said, let me get back to Virginia and run some numbers, figure things out, and I'll let you know. And she told me she would provide me the rent rolls for the Airbnb. So she did. She emailed them to me, and I emailed her back. And I went to the Motley Fool because I was working part-time for the Motley Fool. I went to their message boards. They had one on real estate because they have hundreds and hundreds of message boards. And I posted something about considering buying my first rental property down in Savannah, Georgia on Tybee Island. And I had various responses, and everyone kind of told me the same thing. They said, for your very first rental property, we think it's better you buy one close to you. You don't want to have to drive 12 hours away if there's some kind of problem. And the more I thought about that, I was like, daggone it, they're right. So I then contacted a real estate agent I knew in my local area. She had sold me my house almost 20 years prior. And over the years, we had seen each other, chit-chatted different things. And I knew she owned rental properties. So I contacted her and said, I'm interested in buying a rental house in this area. While that was happening, my local credit union that I belonged to was always advertising about a HELOC, home equity line of credit. They'd have billboards up, they'd send emails out or put it on their website, whatever they did. So I called them about it. I asked about it. I told them my personal house was paid off. They said, come on in. We'll be glad to help you out. I went in. I remember I sat there with the missus talking to the person, and I said, so if I get this HELOC, I can use the money for anything I want. And they said, yes, anything. And they said, we can appraise your house and give you like whatever it was, 70 or 75% of the appraised value. And I said, I don't want that much. I said, I only want a maximum of $30,000. And they said, you can get a lot more. And I said, I don't want a lot more. I want a maximum of $30,000. And they said, well, we don't need to do an appraisal then. I said, well, that's good. And so they did that. And I remember sitting there that day to sign the closing documents. And I said, I can use this money for anything I want. And they said, yes, you can rehab your house. You can buy a boat. You can buy a car, pay off bills, whatever you want to do. I said, okay, thank you. So by that time, it was progressing towards buying my first rental house in that area. So I used, and I remember I was working as a police officer. I was pulling into that credit union parking lot to do something. Probably not that HELOC. It wasn't that HELOC because I was on duty. Doing something when my phone rang. And it was my lender that I was using. I was using Axis Bank, AXOS, for my first mortgage. And the guy was chit-chatting with me, and he said, well, if you put 25% down, I can give you like a slightly better interest rate than if you just put 20% down. I was like, I didn't know anything about buying real estate then. And I said, sure, I'll put 25% down. And the house was like $97,000. So you figure 25% down was, say, roughly $25,000. Okay. So I used, I think, ballparking it, $17,000 of that HELOC. Remember, I had a $30,000 credit limit. $17,000 of it to assist me with that first down payment. Okay. So I bought it in January. All right. Of 2017. Closed on it mid-January. By March, I forget exactly, it was probably March 1st, because I had a little bit of work I had to do to the house. I got my first tenant in there. I didn't know what I was doing. Again, I didn't screen the tenant properly. There was numerous red flags were thrown up, but knowing that now, but I accepted the tenant. I got, I think, 2 months rent. So March, April, I guess. And then I didn't get May, and I gave her the 5-day pay or quit notice, and she started crying on me. Said she'd be paying me in the next week or two, and I said, okay, I'm not evicting you, but this is a process. As long as you pay me, we're okay. The next week came and went, and nothing. And so then I filed the eviction paperwork, whatever I had to do, the unlawful detainer. We got a court date set. I was sitting in the courtroom that morning in the front row, and I heard the clerk come walking in. The case was set for like 9 o'clock. Heard the clerk come walking in maybe at 9:10, and I heard the name mentioned of my tenant, telling the judge that my tenant had called, saying she was sick or her kids were sick and she couldn't make it to court. And the judge looked at the clock and was like, how long ago she called? And they said she just hung up. And he's like, well, it's 10 minutes after 9, so sorry. And he's like, well, let's just go ahead and call this case. And he called the case, and I walked up, and he ruled in my favor. Now, when he ruled in my favor, I said, what's the next step? And because I didn't know. I'd never gone through an eviction before. And he told me to go out and talk to the clerk. The clerk then told me it was a new judge, and the judge required an additional 10 days to wait before I could contact the sheriff's department. to do the set out. So I walked down to the sheriff's department. They were in the same building. And they told me I had to wait those 10 days. And if she wasn't moved out by then, I contact them at that point and they schedule the move out. And everything had kind of happened fairly quickly. But then I had to wait a little bit, a couple more weeks to get it done. And they set an appointment 9 a.m. on like a Thursday or Friday or whatever it was to show up to set her out. And setting her out was basically telling her she had to get out. So I met them at that property on that day at that time. And when they walked in, they addressed my tenant by first name. They knew her. And I was like, that's a bad sign. But then, sorry, the text popped up and it just distracted me. But then I gave her 24 hours to get out. I changed the locks on the door. She was out by the next morning. More transpired in there, but she was out by the next morning. And I then learned how to screen a tenant. I then screened tenants the correct way, and I got a family in there June 1st or July 1st, whenever it was. So as the next couple of months went along and I was getting rent steadily, I told the missus, I'm going to look at buying another rental property. And she was like, just one more. Just one more. All right, we had one, just one more. She had seen how much that stressed me out, that first one. So then I started looking around again, almost a year later, and the market had changed. There wasn't near as many houses on the market. Prices were going up. This would have been in late 2017. But I found a house then with my real estate agent's help, and it was a girl. It was off market, wasn't on the MLS. And it was a girl who had been abused by her spouse, and he had beaten her up and damaged the house, broke down 3 doors trying to get to her and stuff. So the house was damaged and it was filthy. It was dirty. The house had been renovated 3 years prior and it was trashed out. It needed a deep cleaning. So she was desperate to sell and get out of there. So I made her an offer. She accepted it like that. And I was like, hey, go on, I should have offered less. But anyway, it is what it is. But I bought it, got an offer, again, right at $97,000 or $97,500, whatever it was. But this one I could rent for more money than the first house. And I closed in December, and I had a tenant in there by January 1st. So, and they were good people. It was a couple, and they started paying me the rent. Oh, and when I bought that for my down payment, I went back to my HELOC. I had been paying the HELOC down because I had a little extra money coming in from my paycheck to Mrs. Paycheck. No mortgage to pay on the house I owned. No kids there. So I had more money coming in. So I was paying the HELOC down. So then I used some of the money again. I put 20% down. I found bigger pockets by now. Put 20% down. So that was roughly $20K. I don't remember how much I used. Maybe I used $10,000. I don't remember. So I bought my second rental house. By that time, it was December, it was January. I remember calling my real estate agent and I said, hey, I'm interested in buying a multifamily unit because I'm reading on Bigger Pockets now that everyone's talking about multifamily units. And she told me in this area, they're hard to find because a lot of people that get them, they hold on to them for years and years and years and years and years. But she goes, but I'll put some feelers out. She called me back in a few days, said she found a triplex. I went and looked at it. It had triplex, 3 apartment units. It was a cool looking building. I had seen it before. It was in the city I worked in as a police officer. I was set to retire in just a couple of months. It was a 2-story building, but it was actually around back. It looked like a 3-story building. It had like a basement apartment with a private entrance around back. And at the front side, it looked like a townhouse, basically. Okay, but a 3rd apartment was in the basement around back. All 3 apartments were filthy. All 3 needed work. I bought it at $199,500, I think it was. It appraised when I bought it at $218,000. But my down payment on that, this is the only time you could say in quotes I use stock money. As a police officer, I had a 457 plan. It's kind of like a 401k plan. I opened it the week I got hired. And I had been putting money in from every single paycheck, sometimes as little as like $10 or $15 or $20. Sometimes it might have been $100. It changed over the years. And I had a balance in it after 20 years of about $65,000. With a 457 plan, once you quit, resign, retire, leave that job, you can access those funds with no penalty. But you got to pay federal and state tax. I called them up leading up to this. They said, yes, when you retire, you can get the money out. We'll hold out federal tax and Virginia state tax. I lived in Virginia. So it was valued at about $65,000. I got in about $45,000. And that $45,000, if you do the math on a $200,000 building, 20% down, that's 40 grand, and closing cost was about $45,000. I used a credit union for the mortgage. I think my closing cost might have been $8,000, $7,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. So I used all of that 457 money as a down payment, plus maybe a little bit more, to finish it out. Sorry about that. And I bought a triplex. By that time, this was in April. Now, I might have closed on in May of 2018. I retired April 1st of 2018, so I was retired when this happened, when I bought this. That time I had found BiggerPockets again, and I was reading them diligently. And I made a contact on BiggerPockets, and I contacted them. I got interested in buying a house out of state. And this person lived down in Birmingham, Alabama. It was like 600 miles from where I lived at. So I set it up to drive down there, and he helped me to get my first rental property out of state. And that was in Birmingham, Alabama. I am now selling that house. We should close hopefully 2 weeks from now, roughly. All right. After owning it, I bought that in maybe August of 2018. So at the end of 2018, I bought those two houses in 2017, one in January, one in December. In 2018, I bought a triplex in May, and I bought a house in Birmingham, I think it was in August. So by the end of the year, I had 6 doors, right? 2 my first year, 4 my next year. So I closed out year 2 with 6 doors, all right? So when I did that, and again, that house in Birmingham, it only cost me $45,000, but I again went back to my HELOC and got assistance in getting the money for the down payment, okay? So I did not sell, besides my 457 plan, I never sold my Roth accounts or my stock accounts to help me out. I used very little money out of pocket. Yes, I used some money out of pocket, but I used a lot of HELOC money. I never fully paid my HELOC off until I sold my house in Virginia in 2021, okay? I was paying it down a lot, but it would go back up. I was paying it down, it would go back up. Paying it down, it would go back up. But by 2021, when I was selling that house in Virginia, I had to pay it off before I sold the house in Virginia. So at that time, I paid it off in full, okay? So that's kind of how I got started. I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. I figured things out as I went along. Hopefully, by sharing that story with you, it might have given you a couple ideas of how you could get started. All right, I've learned a lot more since January of 20, or since the fall of 2016. I've learned a lot more. I've been through a lot more highs and lows with my rental properties. Okay, I'm still going through highs and lows with my rental properties. Okay, so anyway, it's worked out for me. I became financially independent in late 2020, early 2021. I'm now living in South Florida. I am putting this house on the market very, very soon. We're counting down days now. And I am planning to move outside of the United States of America for a while. And why am I going to do this? Because I want to keep growing my investments. And I will share my story with you as time progresses. Some of my videos at times may get a little sporadic, okay? But normally I'll try to do a video a day. And I will talk on a variety of different topics. I should be getting in also today an email for 3 more mineral rights positions. Should have their very first special distribution payout today. It's the 10th of the month, and they will be added to the monthly cycle, which comes out around the 25th of the month. Okay, so there'll be 3 more positions. So that'll be some more income coming in, which will help things. Okay, hopefully that helped you out just a bit. So with that being said, Have a great day. Stay safe in all you do. Maskies signing out.